Joe Kaler paid me money to drive a 1930 Ford A model that we owned all around McDowell County and park it on Main Street in Marion, and he would put all of the candidates' bumper stickers and campaign buttons and their campaign material on the running boards of the A model. And I think we also plastered signs all over the A model. My parents are here, Kurt Gurley and Faye Gurley, and it was his car. And he does contend that he had to repaint it after that year. But that was my first exposure to politics. My next exposure to politics was in 1974 when I was 18 years old. I was the registration books turned over to Republicans after 1972. Jim Holzhauser won. It took the Democrats about a year and a half to turn the books over to us because they had a lot of erasing and correcting to do. But they didn't get it all done because I got the books and I was the registrar for the Glenwood precinct in 1974 at 18 years old. So I was the registrar for the primary election, and you could see the erased marks. And there was a lot of dead people voting in Glenwood up until 1974. Unfortunately for me, the Democrats learned that I was going to college. I went to Chapel Hill, so that by November of '74 I was no longer living in the precinct, and they were able to get me fired as the registrar. And that was the end of my political career locally. Luckily, I didn't let that hold me back, and so I did go on to UNC. I've got a degree in pharmacy. I have a master's degree in pharmacy administration. But my biggest accomplishment in pharmacy was I married a pharmacist that was in school with me. And so we were married in 1980 and moved to Raleigh, and we opened our own store. So my wife's store was in Raleigh, mine was in Durham, and we ran our own drug stores until about 1999. We sold our stores, and I took my early retirement in 1999, and she didn't work, I didn't work, stayed at home, have 2 kids. They were in middle school, have a son and a daughter, and for about 5 years we would have summers off and travel, and I chose to go to law school during that time, so I got a law degree during that time, and my wife got a horticulture degree from NC State, and so we were having a good time. I got a little bored, and so in the middle of law school I decided to run for the Wake County Board of Commissioners. And in my 3rd year I was elected. It was 2002. I was elected to my first term on the Wake County Board of Commissioners. Now, didn't have a job, and I was in school, was running against an incumbent Democrat, and they were all very confident that they were going to win. So every event that I went to, my opponent described me as an unemployed student. Okay, that's going to come back to haunt you, but that's okay. And so we actually took, all 4 Republicans won in 2002, and we took the majority of the Wake County Board of Commissioners, and we held it every year since then, except for 2 years, from 2008 to 2010. We didn't have it. I've won 3 elections in Wake County. We run countywide, 900,000 people. Our county is bigger than a congressional district. It's 1/10 the size of North Carolina. So I've run an election that's 1/10 the size of North Carolina. And Wake County is bigger than 4 states in the United States. So I'm used to running a big campaign in a small area. Now running for lieutenant governor is a big campaign over a tremendously large area, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get started early and get out and start talking to people. On our Board of Commissioners, we have done things that I would like to take to the state. For example, in Wake County, for the past 10 years that I've been there on the Board of Commissioners, we have run a very transparent government. We have a program that's called our Wake Watch program that allows citizens to go onto the internet and access every expenditure in our budget. You can click on a commissioner's name and see every dollar that commissioner has spent on travel or entertainment or technology. Everything is spent by the commissioners, every dollar that's spent by any employee. And that is, we won the National Association of Counties Award last year for the best innovation in government transparency. This year, the North Carolina State Government awarded us the award for the most transparent county. The Treasurer's Office did it, and the John Locke Foundation rated Wake County as one of the only 2 counties in North Carolina to have an A for transparency in county government. Now, I was hoping Andy was going to be here because that is available for any county. We do it, we've developed it, and we will be glad to work it. You're a B. Well, you could be an A if you'll adopt our transparency model. And we sell it for not a whole lot of money, but it will help balance our budget if you buy it. So we're we hold transparency to be very important. Because people deserve to see where the tax money is going. The biggest benefit that I've seen for this, though, is the reduction in commissioners spending money. Once you put it on the internet, we've got one lady, Betty Lou Ward. She's been a commissioner for 26 years. She loves to travel. Once we put that on the internet where people could check it, her spending has been cut to nothing because she doesn't want to be seen spending taxpayers' money. The other thing that we really try to do is to be a very honest government as far as dealing with the public. And the fact that we even attempt to be honest with the taxpayers probably puts us ahead of 90% of the other counties and local governments anyway. Most of them don't even try to be honest with the public. I think the first example of us trying to disclose what we were doing was in 2006, we had a $970 million school bond. And in that school bond, we knew that it was going to require a tax increase to pay for it. So we actually told the public how much the tax increase was going to be to cover the school bond, and went a step further and said, and if you agree to pay for these schools to be built, we're also going to incur a 2-cent tax increase to operate the schools. The public voted for the new schools knowing that it was going to incur a tax increase, and that gave us the authority, gave us the moral authority and responsibility to go forward and do it. But we've always tried to be very honest, very transparent, and to represent the needs of the citizens. Now, in North Carolina, currently, we have a fantastic state legislature, the House and the Senate. I spent yesterday, the North Carolina Association of Counties had their lobbying day, right? One of my commissioners on my board is the president of the North Carolina Association this year, and so I thought I should go help him out. And commissioners from like 80 of the counties were there. We went to the lobby of the legislators. One of the things we're lobbying is for the legislature not to shift all of their problems to us. And the legislature's not doing it. But we have a governor that has promised to not cut education spending. That's her big issue right now. But she, in her budget, she shifts the cost of school buses to the counties. In Wake County, that'll cost us $16 million. Statewide, for 2 years. Statewide, that's about a $65 million shift. And yet, she will stand in front of you and tell you, I'm not reducing spending for education. She's not reducing it from the state level, she's forcing the county to do it. I think that's very dishonest. The other dishonesty, well, one other dishonesty is money that's coming to North Carolina for a rail system. We have a $500 million grant from the federal government to improve rail service from Raleigh to Charlotte. I'm not going to help you a bit here. I mean, $500 million tax money. The governor promoted this by saying it was going to provide 4,800 new jobs in North Carolina. That's really the only selling point for it, because all it does is speed up the rails. It's already there. It's not anything new. It's just improving. For $500 million, you're going to be able to go between Charlotte and Raleigh 13 minutes faster than you could otherwise. And so people knew that was ridiculous to spend that much money. But for 4,800 jobs, she was getting some support. Well, now it turns out that the 4,800 jobs is really 1,200 jobs for 4 years. And that's it. So she learned from President Obama that when you're talking about creating jobs, you create a job year. And I can't think of any more dishonest representation for government to go through than that. And that's exactly what we're dealing with in the state government, because there is no effort to allow citizens to see what's actually going on. And it's completely a game of a shell game, just shifting the numbers around. The governor is trying to claim that our legislature is cutting vital services. The only reason that these things were paid for last year is because of the stimulus money from the federal government that she spent for ongoing expenses, knowing that that couldn't continue, and that it's a purely political ploy to try to blame it on the Republican legislature now, when we finally have a Republican legislature acting like adults, and we still have a governor and a lieutenant governor not willing to make the difficult decisions. That's why I want to be lieutenant governor, and bring some of the things I've learned from the county level to the state. I want to be the governor's ambassador to small business. I've always owned businesses my entire life. I've owned my own drugstore. I know that small business is what will lead us out of the economic recession that we're in now. When I hire a person to work in my drugstore, I plan to hire them to work for the next 20 years. I don't go around claiming to have added 20 new jobs because one person's going to work for 20 years. I know that's one new job, and it is small business that will account for 3 out of every 4 new private sector jobs. And that's what we need, is private sector jobs. We don't need government jobs. That's where the growth is in North Carolina now, is in government jobs, and those aren't going to be permanent. So I will pledge to be the ambassador to small business. I will help reduce the obstacles that government places in the line, in the way of small business, and help lead out of that recession. I spent last evening with Pat McCrory. He's campaigning harder than I am. He hasn't even announced that he's running for governor, but he's running for governor. I mean, it's very clear, and he is definitely running. And if you see Pat McCrory on one side, and you see Beverly Perdue, just as in the campaign last year, there is a night and day difference. Pat McCrory understands the issues in North Carolina, and he's got the ability to lead us out of the recession that we're in now, and he has the ability to provide the honest leadership that we need. So if I could encourage you to support Pat McCrory, support me for Lieutenant Governor. You'd be joining some people that I think you know very well. Fred Smith is a very good friend of mine. He's I know he carried McDowell County. He was the very first person to support my campaign in 2002 when he was a senator, and he is going to be a good supporter. We've also have the support of the only lieutenant governor, the only Republican lieutenant governor in North Carolina for the last 100 years, Jim Gardner.